The year is 2021. Sonic Forces had been out for more or less 4 years, and the public faith in Sonic the Hedgehog was a bit mixed, to say the least. The games throughout the 2010s ranged from imitating other series to mostly banking on the series' past instead of moving forward. There was some good through it all, but viewing it as a whole, it was easy to see that there was this general fear of letting the Sonic series be itself. Instead, it was just tunneling itself into a weird, harmful hole of recycled level themes and self-deprecation disguised as self-awareness. But at the end of every tunnel, there's light. And in this case, that light would be a new Sonic game, teased in June of 2021, and formally announced later that same year. And wouldn't you know it, this was when the Sonic series would fight its fears. Sonic Frontiers is not a perfect game, but it's a game that I have a lot of respect for. There's not just legitimate passion behind this project, but passion that had time to be refined. And it's easy to see, from the gameplay to the music to even the plot. It's fun to simply move around in this game. The open zone allows for expression and movement that I haven't seen in a Sonic game in years. Alongside that, the story, while nothing too crazy, is heartfelt and has a big scope, even if said scope can be held back by the budget. And the cyberspace stages, while probably the weakest aspect of the game, are still decent fun to try and beat my best times in. But my favorite part of the game by far, and the thing that shook me to my core, the boss fights. Especially after Forces, these were a welcome surprise. While they're not all hitters, each of the bosses has something cool going for them, and they usually aren't pushovers. But the cream of the crop are none other than the supersonic fights. While they're far from flawless, they brought me back to a sense of childlike wonder that I haven't felt in years. From their build-up to the execution, here's why the Titan fights are the stars of Sonic Frontiers.
Guess that's one of the Titans keeping Amy trapped.
As early as the first hour on each island, Sonic Frontiers lets its players know exactly what they're up against when it comes to the game's foes. As Sonic takes a Chaos Emerald or two back from the island, the Titans appear and get provoked by Sage. Their rage awakened, we now get to see the menace that these Guardian mechas can bring firsthand. Their colossal size looms over Sonic, and their power basically matches said size. Sonic tries to throw hands with the first one, Giganto, but gets his ass beat. Or thrown, I guess. And with the other two, after they've been provoked, Sonic knows he doesn't stand a chance and has to escape from them through these elaborate and intense set pieces. Honestly, even after doing them multiple times, I still kinda get tripped up. And I'm not the only one. Shoutouts to my boy Squid. He was a real one. But since he's no match for them in his base form, Sonic knows that he's gotta find the rest of the emeralds to match their power.
I'm gonna need the Chaos Emeralds. And maybe a little bit of luck.
From there, we have the long build-up from the first encounter to the fight itself, in the form of the main gameplay loop. Traversing the vast open zones, going through cyberspace and gathering emeralds, while also talking to characters and learning more about the world that the Ancients left behind on the side. There's drama and intrigue, but more importantly, fun and heart at the core of this game. No matter what the player does, they're always making progress in-game. The loop does a good job in getting the player, well, maybe not immersed, but invested. But in the back of your mind, you're remembering what went down before. Probably. I don't know. I'm not in your mind. But whether the island's Titan is looming over Sonic in the open world, or looming under him, it's in there somewhere. Our boy is still itching to throw down with those Titans. And this makes it so that when the player gets to those Titans, It pays off all that build-up and then some. The actual climb up the Titan may leave a little something to be desired, but when you get that final emerald, you'll immediately feel the heat from what Sonic Team has been cooking. For the first time in Sonic history, I think I can safely say the Supersonic fights are my favorite part of a Sonic game. And well, that's because they're not like the Supersonic fights of yore. Not entirely, anyway. These fights do retain Supersonic mechanics from the past, such as the flight, rings being a timer, and the general power buff, but they also use Frontiers' base moveset in conjunction with those things, along with a touch of over-the-top, flashy action goodness. And honestly, the tweak of making both Sonic and his super form control similar is for the best. Supersonic had a problem for the longest time of feeling like it introduced a brand new type of gameplay at the tail end of the game. This would actively harm finales in games like Generations. So going out of their way to incorporate things learned in the game's combat makes it not just a flashy finale for each island, but also something that the players won't have to spend too much time adjusting to. It feels familiar, seeing versions of the moves used throughout the game so far, but it raises the stakes just enough to make the player feel the adrenaline as they fight against these all-powerful beast machines. And that's a tricky balance to keep, style versus substance, I mean. And in this case, Sonic Frontiers keeps both on equal footing. This approach is reminiscent of character action games. They keep the energy up, test the player's reflexes, and reward good play with some of the sickest attacks and visuals in the game. I mean, oh my god, look at what this guy can do! It not only fits the speedy side of Sonic's whole game feel, but it sells the power of Supersonic really well. It even reminds me of an honestly pretty good exchange from forces.
Impossible. Your abilities exceed your previous data.
Unlike mechs, I can grow. I get more powerful every second.
God, how did we get here? It's so good! And the best part is, it's not just a surface level understanding of these things. It would be one thing if the Titan fights were just a spectacle, or just fun to play. If they were just that, they'd be a neat character action imitation at best. Good to fill the void that Bayonetta 3 left for me. But no, it doesn't just do one thing well. It puts every necessary cog into the machine, and even makes that machine more flashy and intricate over time. All the while, never losing sight of what makes the spirit of Sonic shine.
No more compromise. This is do or die, and now you've crossed the line. You wake the beast inside.
The escalation of the first three Titans is done really well. It iterates on the whole big enemy, brah thing, while evolving in different ways each time. Giganto is a good first Titan in this respect. Its attacks are large and sweeping, but in a way that's easy to avoid or parry. The first phase allows for a bit of experimentation as Super, so there's time to get a handle on things and feel powerful as hell. The cues are legible, leaving plenty of time to put the hurt on it. Basically, this is the tutorial, since it's Frontier's first foray into playing as the Golden God. And when that second phase is reached, Giganto throws a couple extra attacks in there that can trip Sonic up, but if dealt with effectively, rewards you with pure spectacle. I find it a little strange that they don't do anything with the ground attack Giganto does in its first encounter, but that hardly matters. This fight is a simple treat, and a lovely introduction to the new Supersonic. Also, the fact that there are multiple ways to deal with that laser is wild. I didn't know you could just dodge it. Wyvern immediately ramps things up in comparison, and not just because you're flying all over the place instead of staying in one spot. A lot more attention is required with the parries as Sonic chases down this missile-firing bionic behemoth. It's pretty nimble, but there's one or two tricks you can use to catch up with it. The weapons that it used in its first encounter, they can now be used against it. And though its second phase doesn't add much to the mix, it stays engaging throughout due to the quick-fire reflexes needed, and again, the pure scope of it all. The fact that you're hovering over the entire island in this fight. It's unbelievable, dude. Oh my god. And finally, there's Knight. The boss that basically made me write this whole video. The biggest and baddest of the bunch, it puts everything the players learned this Super to the test, and even throws in a few extra things here and there. There's been Titan fights near the ground and in the sky, but now this Titan fights Sonic in the depths of Chaos Island's crater. Both parties could run if they wanted, but the crater symbolizes how now more than ever, this is a fight to the death, and they won't back down. Its blade is swift, its saw blade shield is swifter, and hesitating for even a second will end in Knight throwing you to the wall. It's definitely the Titan designed to make the players struggle the most in this regard. There's still cool moments aplenty, but inattentive players will get rocked. Combine that with the increased amount of QuickTime events, and it's clear the battle has become an intense dance with destiny. But that intensity just makes the end of the fights pay off that much better.
Now here we go, it's the end of the show. Hear them, they're calling your name. 'Cause in the end,
It was never about chivalry for me. I just gotta do what I've gotta do. That's all.
Peak fiction. GOAT. Raw. Fire.
These three boss fights are all phenomenally well done, and while the fourth Titan, Supreme, kind of feels a bit less climactic in comparison, that doesn't take away from just how sensational the others are. All the big differences and all the little touches really add up to just make them feel so lovingly crafted. I mean, each Titan has its own animation for when it gets Psy-looped by Supersonic. The Psy-loop being, you run a circle around things and they go boom. Giganto gets thrown up in the air by a current of supersonic wind. But Wyvern gets chained and shackled by pure energy. And Knight gets stabbed, and if you Psy-loop him again, it slams him into the ground. I cannot stress enough, this is the best it's ever been. So yeah, the Titan-style fights are a good capstone to the open zone formula of Sonic Frontiers. They put all the high-speed action techniques that have been learned to the test, and they're raw as hell. Top it all off with some fantastic singing performances by Kellin Quinn from Sleeping with Sirens. And yeah, you got something pretty good going here. But I suppose the question now is, in terms of these battles in future games, where do we go from here?
Don't you dare lose it!
Now why would I want to disappoint you?
While I'm by no means a game designer, just some dingus on the internet, I think that there's a few things that can be adjusted or expanded upon to make these supersonic fights even better than they already are. There's some clunkiness to iron out in terms of the mechanics, and maybe Sonic Team could tweak the balance a little to make them a bit more intense in the future. For one, I think these matches could have smoother music transitions. Depending on when the bosses get defeated, the songs accompanying them can sort of have an awkward jump as it cuts to the boss's finisher.
when your time has come and gone. Welcome to the mind of a different kind. We've been growing slowly.
There's gotta be a better way to go about that, right? All I'm saying is, if Kirby can have multiple transition points for a boss theme to go smoothly from Phase 1 to Phase 2, I think Sonic, which is top hog as far as video game music goes, can do something similar. Another thing I think could help with engagement is smaller parry windows, and this kind of applies to the whole game, not just the end of island fights. The player can hold parry for a long time. It's kinda ridiculous just how much can be cheesed with it. While maybe that would be an okay thing to keep for the easy difficulty, I'd propose maybe in the future making the windows on normal and especially hard difficulties a little more narrow. It would be cool to pull off these tight back-to-back counters in succession, instead of just back-to-back holding the button. I also think if we're going to continue this format of Super Fight, we need to bring in one extra thing from the classics, working rings into the battles themselves. Only Wyverns really has them in its battle, so for the others, if the ring count is low, then prepare to go find some more rings. At worst, the grind is like a few minutes if you know the tricks, but I think even that's a bit cumbersome. And now for the big one. Either get enough devs to carry the momentum throughout the game, or maybe dial back the scope a little next time. It's clear to me that while the Titan fights are amazing and ambitious, the team didn't have the time, manpower, or budget to keep them going throughout the game. As I said before, the last Titan doesn't hit the same level as the others. I mean, it's basically just Giganto with extra steps. But either way, even with these slight hitches, these supersonic fights, and in turn Sonic Frontiers as a whole, elicit emotions from me that I haven't gotten from a new Sonic game in a long time. Intrigue, excitement, and most importantly, optimism. I'm hopeful for the future of Sonic, and that's something I couldn't say years ago. When I started this channel, I told myself I would never do a Sonic essay. I was in a bad state with the series, almost cutting ties with it entirely. And well, while there's still trust to gain back, look where I am now, considering Sonic Frontiers to be in my top 10 Sonic games. What a world. But seriously, I want to be there to see this series grow and evolve again. I want it to continue learning from its mistakes, and maybe even get to the point where a future game could be Sonic Team's magnum opus. And considering how Sonic Team themselves wants to keep going forward with this formula, rather than dumping the whole thing out again, I think they feel the same way. Okay, so I didn't know where to work this into the video, but while I was working on it, they announced the DLC thing with the multiple playable characters, and I just...